Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her face against the observation window of the research ship. Below her stretched the dead world of Kepler 442c. Once, this planet had been covered in thick forests and rushing rivers. Now it looked like a graveyard. "Another one," said Commander Veltar, stepping up beside her. The Zentari's blue skin seemed to glow in the dim light. His voice was calm, as always. "The plague hit this world hard." Elena nodded. She had seen 12 dead worlds in the past month. Each one told the same story. A disease had swept through the planets, killing the top predators first. Without them, the plant eaters multiplied too fast and ate everything. Then, they starved. Then, everything died. "We should take samples," Elena said. "Maybe we can figure out what caused this." Veltar's large black eyes studied her. "The Federation has strict rules about this sector. We observe. We record. We do not land on infected worlds." Elena bit her lip. She understood the rules. But looking at the dead planet made her chest tight. Someone needed to find out what happened here. Someone needed to make sure it never happened again. 3 hours later, Elena walked through the dead forest. Her environmental suit beeped softly, confirming the air was safe to breathe. The trees stood like empty bones. No birds sang. No insects buzzed. The silence felt heavy. She took readings from her scanner and collected soil samples. The numbers told a clear story. The plague had targeted one specific group of animals. The Vorthok. Elena shivered. Everyone knew about Vorthok. They were the nightmare species that lived on the edge of known space. 12 feet tall, with 6 arms and claws that could cut through metal. Their bone plates were harder than most armor. A single Vorthok could destroy a small ship, but here, they had all died. Elena was walking back to her shuttle when she heard it. A soft sound, almost like crying. She stopped and listened. There it was again. Following the sound, Elena pushed through some dead bushes. Behind them was a small cave. The crying was coming from inside. Elena turned on her flashlight and stepped into the cave. In the back corner, huddled against the rock wall, was a small creature. It was about the size of a house cat, but Elena knew what it was immediately. A Vorthok cub. The little predator looked up at her with large, golden eyes. Its bone plates were still soft and pale. Its 6 tiny arms wrapped around itself as it shivered. When it saw Elena, it made the crying sound again. Elena's heart broke. She activated her communicator. "Commander, I found something." "What is it, Doctor?" "A survivor, a Vorthok cub." The silence on the other end lasted so long that Elena thought her communicator had broken. Finally, Veltar spoke. "Leave it there." "Sir?" "Leave it there and return to the ship immediately." "That is an order." Elena looked at the cub. It was trying to crawl toward her, but it was too weak. She could see its ribs through its thin skin. "It's just a baby," she said. "Dr. Vasquez, listen to me carefully. Adult Vorthok are the most dangerous predators in known space. Federation law requires that all Vorthok specimens be destroyed on sight. That cub will grow up to be a killing machine." Elena knelt down. The cub reached out with one tiny arm and touched her gloved hand. It stopped crying. "It's dying, Commander." "Good." Return to the ship. Elena closed her eyes. She thought about her training. She thought about Federation law. She thought about her career. Then she thought about the cub's golden eyes. "No," she said. "Doctor?" "I said no. I won't leave it here to die. Dr. Vasquez, if you bring that creature aboard my ship, I will have you arrested." Elena picked up the cub. It was so light she could barely feel it through her suit. It nuzzled against her chest and made a soft, purring sound. "Then I guess you'll have to arrest me." 2 hours later, Elena sat in the ship's medical bay. The Vorthok cub lay on the examination table, hooked up to feeding tubes. Dr. Corian, a Keth medic, worked on the little creature with obvious reluctance. "Its vital signs are stable," Corian reported. His scaled hands moved over his instruments. "But I still think this is madness." Commander Veltar entered the medical bay with 2 security guards. Elena stood up. "Dr. Vasquez," the commander said. "You are under arrest for violating Federation safety protocols." "Yes, sir. However," Veltar continued, "regulations allow you to claim emergency leave before your hearing. If you do so, you will be removed from this ship at the next port." Elena looked at the cub. It was awake now, watching her with those golden eyes. "Where is the next port?" "Kepler 442c. Elena's stomach dropped. "You want to leave me on the dead planet? It is the closest port to our current position. You can wait there for a Federation transport." Elena realized what Veltar was really saying. He was giving her a choice: face court-martial and prison, or be abandoned on a dead world with the creature she saved. She looked around the medical bay. The other crew members watched her with expressions ranging from confusion to disgust. To them, she was committing suicide for a monster. But when Elena looked at the cub, she didn't see a monster. She saw a frightened baby who had lost everything. "I claim emergency leave," she said. Commander Veltar nodded. "Very well. You have 6 hours to prepare." As the crew filed out of the medical bay, Elena sat down beside the examination table. The cub reached out and wrapped its tiny fingers around her thumb. "I guess it's just you and me now," she whispered. Outside the medical bay, she could hear the crew discussing her decision. None of them understood. How could they? They were logical species who made logical decisions, but Elena was human, and humans sometimes did things that made no sense to anyone else. Sometimes that was exactly what the universe needed. 6 months later, Elena woke up to the sound of purring. She opened her eyes and saw Kex curled up beside her sleeping bag. The Vorthak was no longer the tiny, dying creature she had found. Now he was the size of a large dog, with bone plates that had hardened into a beautiful silver color. Elena reached out and scratched behind one of his small horns. Kex opened his golden eyes and made a happy chirping sound. "Good morning to you too," Elena said. She climbed out of her sleeping bag and walked to the entrance of their shelter. The dead world looked the same as always. But Elena had learned to find beauty in small things. This morning, the sunrise painted the empty sky in shades of orange and pink. Kex followed her outside and immediately began sniffing around their camp. His 6 arms moved constantly, checking for any threats. Elena smiled. Even as a young Vorthak, Kex had appointed himself as her protector. Elena's communicator buzzed. She had been expecting this call. "Dr. Vasquez," said the voice on the other end. "This is Dr. Thane from the Federation Science Council. We are approaching your position." Elena looked up. A small research ship was descending through the atmosphere. "Permission to land?" Dr. Thane asked. "Granted," Elena replied. Kex moved to stand beside Elena. His body language had changed. His bone plates were slightly raised, and his golden eyes watched the approaching ship carefully. He wasn't afraid, but he was ready to defend Elena if needed. "Easy, Kex," Elena said softly. "These are friends." Kex relaxed slightly, but he stayed close to Elena's side. The ship landed 50 meters away from their shelter. Elena watched as 3 figures emerged. She recognized Dr. Thane immediately. The tall, blue-skinned Zentari was famous throughout the Federation for his work with dangerous species. The other 2 were his assistants. Dr. Thane approached slowly. His large black eyes focused on Kex. When he was about 10 meters away, Kex made a low, growling sound. "That's far enough," Elena called out. Dr. Thane stopped immediately. "Dr. Vasquez, is that creature under your control?" Elena almost laughed. "Nobody controls Kex. But yes, he listens to me." "Remarkable," Dr. Thane breathed. "May I approach?" Elena looked down at Kex. "What do you think, boy? Should we let him come closer?" Kex tilted his head, studying Dr. Thane. After a moment, he sat down and made a soft, chirping sound. "He says it's okay," Elena said. "But move slowly." Dr. Thane took careful steps forward. When he was close enough to touch Kex, the Vorthak stood up and sniffed him. Then, to everyone's surprise, Kex gently bumped his head against Dr. Thane's leg. "Incredible," Dr. Thane whispered. Dr. Vasquez, do you understand what you've accomplished? Elena shrugged. I raised a baby. You've done something that every expert in the galaxy said was impossible. You've domesticated a Vorthak. I wouldn't say domesticated, Elena said. Kex isn't a pet. He's more like a partner. Dr. Thane spent the next several days studying Elena and Kex. He recorded everything. How they communicated. How they hunted together. How Kex protected Elena from the few dangerous animals that still lived on the dead world. What amazed Dr. Thane most was how intelligent Kex had become. The young Vorthak could solve complex problems. He understood abstract concepts. He even seemed to have a sense of humor. In all our studies of wild Vorthak, Dr. Thane told Elena, we never saw this level of intelligence. They were considered smart predators, but nothing more. Elena was watching Kex play with a puzzle she had made for him. The Vorthak was using all 6 arms to manipulate the pieces, trying different combinations with obvious thought and planning. That's because wild Vorthak are traumatized, Elena said. What do you mean? Elena sat down beside Dr. Thane. I've been thinking about this for months. Vorthak are social creatures. They're supposed to live in family groups. But the plague killed the adults first. That means for generations, Vorthak cubs have been growing up alone, without anyone to teach them or love them. Dr. Thane's eyes widened. You think the aggressive behavior we've observed is actually a trauma response? I know it is. Kex was the same way when I first found him. Scared, angry, defensive. But once he realized I wasn't going to hurt him, once he felt safe and loved, his real personality emerged. Elena pointed to Kex, who had solved the puzzle and was now trying to show it to Elena. That's not a mindless predator. That's a person. Dr. Thane was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. Dr. Vasquez, what you've discovered could change everything. If Vorthak can be integrated into galactic society. They can be more than integrated, Elena said. They can be valuable members of society. Kex has already saved my life dozens of times. He's protected me from storms, predators, and accidents. And he's learned to be gentle with things that are smaller and weaker than him. As if to prove her point, a small lizard ran near Kex's feet. The young Vorthak could have caught it easily. Instead, he carefully stepped around it, making sure not to hurt the tiny creature. He's learned compassion, Dr. Thane said in wonder. He's learned it because I showed it to him, Elena said. Vorthak aren't born evil. They're born to be whatever their family teaches them to be. Dr. Thane activated his recording device. Dr. Vasquez, would you be willing to return to Federation space? The Science Council needs to see this. The military needs to understand what you've accomplished. Elena looked at Kex, who was now lying in the shade, watching the clouds. He looked peaceful and happy. What about Kex? Will they accept him? After what I've seen here, I believe they'll have no choice. Elena made her decision. All right, but Kex and I are a team. Where I go, he goes. Of course. 3 days later, Elena and Kex boarded Dr. Thane's ship. As they lifted off from the dead world, Elena looked out the window one last time. 6 months ago, this planet had been a tomb. But it was also the place where she and Kex had become family. Kex pressed against her side and made a questioning sound. We're going to meet new friends, Elena told him. They're going to be very surprised to see you. Kex tilted his head and made what Elena had learned was his laughing sound. As the ship entered hyperspace, Elena realized that their real adventure was just beginning. She had proven that humans and Vorthak could bond. Now she had to prove it to the rest of the galaxy. But with Kex beside her, Elena felt ready for anything. Together, they were going to change how the universe saw both their species, and deep down, Elena suspected that this was only the beginning. 2 years had passed since Elena and Kex arrived at Federation headquarters. Now Elena stood in the war room, surrounded by the most powerful military minds in the galaxy. Admiral Rex, a battle-scarred Keth, pointed to the holographic display showing the Outer Rim territories. 17 colonies have fallen in the past month, the Admiral said. The Screeth hegemony is using swarm tactics that our forces can't counter. Elena studied the display. Red markers showed the locations of attacked colonies. The pattern was clear and terrifying. They're not just raiding, Elena said. They're systematically conquering and enslaving entire systems. Exactly, Admiral Rex nodded. Our ships are superior individually. But the Screeth attack in groups of hundreds. They overwhelm our defenses through sheer numbers. General Corvain, a proud Zentari, stepped forward. Our strategists have run thousands of simulations. Every conventional approach results in massive casualties. Elena looked around the room. These were the best military minds in the Federation. And they were stumped. The Screeth were insectoids who thought like a hive mind. Traditional tactics meant nothing to them. What about unconventional approaches? Elena asked. Admiral Rex's eyes narrowed. Dr. Vasquez, are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? Elena took a deep breath. Kex could break their formations. A single Vorthak in the middle of a Screeth swarm would cause instant panic. The room erupted in angry voices. Elena heard words like insane, dangerous, and impossible, shouted in multiple languages. General Corvain raised his hand for silence. Dr. Vasquez, with respect, you're asking us to deploy a Vorthak in close contact with Federation civilians. Even if your creature is trained, the risk is enormous. Kex isn't my creature, Elena said firmly. He's my partner, and he's saved my life more times than I can count. On an empty planet, Admiral Rex said, this would be different. Combat conditions. Frightened civilians. High stress. Elena understood their concerns. But she also knew Kex better than anyone in the galaxy. Give us a chance to prove ourselves, she said. One mission. If Kex can't handle it, I'll accept whatever restrictions you want to place on us. The military leaders looked at each other. Elena could see them weighing options. Finally, Admiral Rex spoke. New series mining colony. 30,000 civilians trapped by Screeth forces. We've been planning a rescue mission, but the casualties would be catastrophic. Elena nodded. When do we leave? 3 days later, Elena and Kex approached New Series in a stealth transport. Through the viewport, Elena could see the mining colony surrounded by thousands of Screeth ships. The insectoids had built a perfect blockade. Kex stood beside her, now fully grown. At 12 feet tall, with massive bone plates and 6 powerful arms, he was an impressive sight. But Elena saw past his fearsome appearance to the gentle soul underneath. You ready for this, boy? She asked. Kex made a soft rumbling sound that Elena recognized as his yes noise. The plan was simple but risky. Elena and Kex would infiltrate the colony through maintenance tunnels. Once inside, they would break the Screeth control from within, while Federation forces attacked from outside. The tunnel was dark and cramped. Elena had to crawl, but Kex moved through it easily with his flexible body. They could hear the Screeth above them, chattering in their clicking language. They emerged inside the colony's main processing plant. The sight that greeted them was heartbreaking. Hundreds of humans and other Federation citizens worked under Screeth guard, mining precious metals for their captors. Elena spotted a group of children huddled in a corner. They looked terrified and hungry. Kex saw them too. His bone plates shifted slightly, and he made a questioning sound. I know, Elena whispered. But we have to be smart about this. She activated her communicator on a secure channel. This is Elena. We're in position. Roger that, came Admiral Rex's voice. Beginning our assault in 30 seconds. Elena looked at Kex. Remember what we practiced. Scare them, but don't kill unless you have to. Kex nodded and moved toward the nearest group of Screeth guards. What happened next would be talked about in military academies for generations. Kex emerged from the shadows like a nightmare. The Screeth saw him and immediately began screaming in their chittering language. The sound of a Vorthak roar in an enclosed space was unlike anything the insectoids had ever heard. But instead of attacking blindly, Kex moved with precision. He disarmed the guards without killing them. He positioned himself between the civilians and their captors. When frightened children ran toward him, he gently guided them to safety. The Screeth formation collapsed instantly. Their hive mind, so effective in organized attacks, became a liability when panic set in. They began fleeing in all directions. Elena watched in amazement as Kex worked. He was everything she had trained him to be and more. A protector, a guardian, a force for good. Within minutes, the colony was secure. Federation forces landed and began evacuating civilians. Medical teams treated the wounded. Engineers started repairing damaged systems. Elena found herself surrounded by grateful colonists. Adults thanked her for bringing their savior. Children wanted to pet Kex, who patiently allowed them to touch his bone plates. "I've never seen anything like it," said Dr. Sarah Chen, the colony's chief medical officer. "When that creature appeared, I thought we were all dead. But he protected us." Elena smiled and scratched behind Kex's horns. "He's good at that." Admiral Rex approached them, his expression unreadable. "Dr. Vasquez," he said formally. Elena straightened. "Yes, sir, that was the most effective military operation I've ever witnessed. 0 Federation casualties, all civilians rescued, enemy forces routed completely." Elena felt relief wash over her. "However," the Admiral continued, "we've received some interesting intelligence from the captured Skreath." Elena's heart sank. "Sir, it seems that news of your tame Vorthak has spread throughout Skreath space. They're calling Kex the nightmare that protects in their language." Elena wasn't sure if this was good or bad news. Admiral Rex's stern expression broke into a smile. "Dr. Vasquez, I'm authorizing the creation of a new military unit. The Human Vorthak Integration Corps." Elena's eyes widened. "Sir, we've had reports of 3 more Vorthak cubs found in different sectors. They're being brought here for what the Science Council is calling humanization training." Elena looked at Kex, who was still surrounded by grateful children. Some of them were drawing pictures of him. Others were asking if they could visit him again. "You hear that, Kex?" Elena said softly. "You're going to have brothers and sisters." Kex made his happy purring sound. As Elena watched the rescued civilians board evacuation ships, she realized that everything was changing. What had started as one woman's impulsive decision to save a dying cub was becoming something much larger. The galaxy was about to learn that the most dangerous predators could also be the most devoted protectors. And it all began with a human who refused to walk away from someone in need. Elena smiled. She couldn't wait to see what would happen next. Elena walked through the training facility, watching 12 human Vorthak pairs practice together. The sight still amazed her. Even after 18 months of running the program, Lieutenant Jake Morrison worked with Vera, a female Vorthak with deep purple bone plates. They were practicing rescue techniques, with Vera carefully lifting mock civilians while Jake coordinated with simulated emergency teams. Nearby, Dr. Lisa Park guided her partner Zephyr through a complex puzzle that required both human creativity and Vorthak strength. The young Vorthak used 4 arms to manipulate pieces, while Dr. Park directed him with hand signals. "Incredible progress," said Dr. Thane, joining Elena at the observation window. 6 months ago, these Vorthak were considered dangerous wild animals. Elena smiled. They were never wild animals. They were just scared children who needed families. Kex approached them, now serving as the facility's head trainer for new Vorthak cubs. Behind him walked Rex, the newest addition to their group. The little cub was barely 2 months old, found on another plague-devastated world. "How's he doing?" Elena asked, kneeling to Rex's level. Kex made a series of soft sounds that Elena had learned was his way of giving reports. Rex was healthy, learning quickly, and showing signs of the same intelligence that marked all humanized Vorthak. "Dr. Vasquez," came a voice from Elena's communicator. "Please report to the command center immediately." Elena's stomach dropped. Emergency calls usually meant bad news. In the command center, Admiral Rex stood before a massive display showing the front lines of the war with the Skreath hegemony. Most of the display was green, indicating Federation control. "Dr. Vasquez," the Admiral said grimly, "we have a problem." Elena studied the display. The front lines looked stable. They were, until 6 hours ago. The display shifted, showing recent battle footage. Elena watched in horror as Vorthak warriors, wild ones, not her trained partners, tore through Federation lines in a mindless rage. The Screeth released a bioweapon, Admiral Rex explained. It's specifically designed to trigger uncontrollable aggression in Vorthak physiology. Elena's heart raced. What about our teams? That's what we need to find out. We're getting reports of Vorthak partners turning on their human companions across 3 sectors. Elena ran back to the training facility, Kex close behind her. She burst into the main hall where the human Vorthak teams were still practicing. Everyone, stop what you're doing, Elena shouted. Emergency protocol. All humans step away from your partners. Now, the humans looked confused but followed orders. They backed away from their Vorthak companions, creating space between the 2 groups. Elena watched carefully. The Vorthak looked confused too, but they weren't showing any signs of aggression. If anything, they seemed concerned about their human partners. Lieutenant Morrison raised his hand. Dr. Vasquez, what's happening? The Screeth released a bioweapon designed to make Vorthak violent, Elena explained. We need to test whether our partners are affected. Elena activated her communicator. Admiral, I'm running a field test on our teams. She looked at Kex. You understand what's happening? Kex nodded and made a soft questioning sound. I need you to try to get angry, Elena said. As angry as you can. Kex tilted his head, clearly confused by the request. Please, Kex. This is important. Kex tried. Elena could see him struggling to work up some kind of rage. His bone plates shifted slightly. He made a few growling sounds, but instead of looking terrifying, he just looked silly. After a minute, he gave up and made his equivalent of a shrug. He can't do it, Elena said into her communicator. None of them can. She looked around at the other Vorthak. They were all watching their human partners with obvious concern and affection. Dr. Vasquez. Admiral Rex's voice crackled through the comm. Are you certain? Elena made a decision. She walked directly to Vera, Lieutenant Morrison's partner. The massive Vorthak could have killed Elena with a single swipe. Instead, Vera gently touched Elena's shoulder and made worried sounds. I'm certain, Elena said. The bioweapon doesn't work on humanized Vorthak. How is that possible? Elena looked at Kex, understanding flooding through her. Because they're not just Vorthak anymore. The bonding process changes them at a neurological level. Their brains have developed differently. Over the following days, Elena's theory proved correct. Wild Vorthak across the galaxy succumbed to the bioweapon, becoming unstoppable engines of destruction. But every single humanized Vorthak remained calm and protective. The difference was so stark that it caught the attention of xenoarchaeologists studying ancient Vorthak ruins. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo contacted Elena a week later with an urgent discovery. Dr. Vasquez, you need to see this. Doctor, Okonkwo said, transmitting data from an archaeological dig. We've been translating Vorthak historical records, and we found something incredible. Elena studied the translated text on her screen. It told the story of an ancient Vorthak civilization that had reached incredible heights of art, science, and philosophy. According to these records, Dr. Okonkwo continued, the Vorthak weren't originally violent. They were a peaceful species that lived in harmony with their environment. What changed? Elena asked. They had symbiotic partners. The texts call them the gentle ones. Small, furry creatures with incredible emotional intelligence and the ability to form deep bonds across species. Elena's breath caught in her throat. Dr. Vasquez, the physical description of the gentle ones is remarkably similar to human characteristics. But here's the really interesting part. When the gentle ones went extinct, Vorthak civilization collapsed within a generation. Elena looked at Kex, who was playing with little Rex. The big Vorthak was teaching the cub how to be gentle with smaller creatures. Dr. Okonkwo, are you saying that humans and Vorthak were meant to be partners? I'm saying that the genetic and neurological compatibility you've discovered isn't an accident. Humans might be the evolutionary successors to the gentle ones. Elena sat down heavily in her chair. The bioweapon doesn't work on our Vorthak, because their brains have been rewired by the bonding process. They've become what their species was originally supposed to be. Exactly. Without human partners, Vorthak revert to their traumatized, aggressive state. With human partners, they become their true selves. Elena looked around the training facility. Humans and Vorthak worked together, played together, cared for each other. It all made sense now. She activated her communicator. Admiral Rex, I need to speak with the Federation Council immediately. Dr. Vasquez, I know how to win this war. But more than that, I know how to heal an entire species. Elena stood up, Kex beside her. Around them, the future was taking shape. A future where the galaxy's most feared predators would become its greatest protectors. Guided by humanity's greatest gift. The ability to love unconditionally. The Skreath thought they had created the perfect weapon to turn Vorthak against the Federation. Instead, they had proven that some bonds were stronger than any bioweapon. They had proven that love could literally change brain chemistry, and they had given Elena the key to transforming galactic civilization. 5 years after Elena first held a dying Vorthak cub in her arms, she stood on the observation deck of the Integration Academy watching something impossible. In the courtyard below, children of dozens of species played together under the watchful eyes of their Vorthak guardians. Human children chased a ball with young Zentari. Keth youngsters built sandcastles alongside reformed Skreath larvae. And in the center of it all, a group of Vorthak cubs played a gentle version of tag, their movements carefully controlled to avoid hurting their smaller friends. The monthly reports are in, said Dr. Thane, joining Elena at the window. The Zentari scientist carried a datapad thick with statistics. The integration protocol has expanded to include 47 previously hostile species. Elena smiled. 47? Last month it was 38. The success rate continues to exceed all projections. What started with Vorthak has revolutionized our understanding of interspecies psychology. Elena watched a young human girl teaching a Skreath larva how to paint. 6 months ago, those two species had been at war. Now, they were sharing art supplies. Dr. Vasquez, Dr. Thane continued. The Federation Council wants to know if you'll accept the promotion to Galactic Director of Species Integration. Elena considered this. 5 years ago, she had been a simple xenobiologist. Now they wanted to put her in charge of reshaping galactic civilization. Can I think about it? She asked. Of course. Though I should mention that Kex has already been approved as your deputy director. Elena laughed. He'll like that. He's always been better at managing the other Vorthak than I am. Speaking of Kex, Elena spotted him across the courtyard. The massive Vorthak was carefully painting a mural on the academy wall. His artwork depicted humans and Vorthak working together among the stars. It was beautiful and surprisingly sophisticated. Has the Vorthak colony been officially established? Elena asked. Yes. New Vorthak was founded last week. 2,000 Vorthak citizens, each bonded with human partners. It's the first independent Vorthak settlement in recorded history. Elena felt a warm pride in her chest. Kex had chosen to stay at the academy rather than join the colony. But many of their trained pairs had volunteered to help build the new world. And the former Skreath territories? Dr. Thane's expression grew more serious. That's proving more challenging. The Skreath hegemony may have surrendered, but rehabilitation of their society is complex. Elena nodded. The insectoid species had been ruled by fear and aggression for so long that learning cooperation was difficult. But they were trying. Dr. Morrison's team is making good progress, Dr. Thane continued. The Skreath larvae respond well to human emotional guidance. It's the adults that struggle. Elena understood. Trauma ran deep in species that had known only war for generations. But she had seen impossible transformations before. Her communicator buzzed. Dr. Vasquez, you have a visitor. Elena made her way to the main entrance, curious about who might be calling. She found Ambassador Veltar waiting for her, the same Zentari who had commanded the ship when she first rescued Kex. Dr. Vasquez, the ambassador said formally. It's good to see you again. Ambassador Veltar. What brings you to the academy? Veltar looked around at the bustling facility. Humans and aliens worked side by side, many accompanied by their Vorthak partners. "I wanted to apologize," he said simply. Elena was surprised. "For what?" "For not understanding what you were trying to do 5 years ago. For thinking your compassion was foolishness." Elena remembered that day clearly, standing in the medical bay, holding a tiny cub while her career ended around her. "You were following regulations," Elena said. "You couldn't have known what would happen." "That's just it," Veltar replied. "I should have known. The Zentari pride ourselves on logic and long-term thinking. But we missed the most logical conclusion of all. Which was that love is the most powerful force in the universe." Elena looked around at the academy. She saw a human engineer working with a Vorthak to design new ships. She saw a Keth medic teaching a reformed Skreath about healing instead of harming. She saw the future of galactic civilization. "You weren't wrong to follow regulations," Elena said. "But sometimes, the universe needs someone to break the rules." Veltar nodded. "The Federation Council is drafting new first contact protocols based on your work. When we encounter new species, humans will be part of every diplomatic team." "Good," Elena said. "Though I hope we won't need them too often." "Why is that?" Elena gestured toward a group of young beings from multiple species working together on a science project. "Because the next generation is growing up together. They'll understand each other in ways we never could." Kex approached them, having finished his mural for the day. His silver bone plates gleamed in the afternoon light. When he saw Ambassador Veltar, he made a polite greeting sound. "Kex remembers you," Elena said with amusement. Veltar looked up at the massive predator who could have killed him without effort. Instead of fear, the ambassador's expression showed wonder. "May I?" Veltar asked, extending his hand. Kex gently touched the ambassador's hand with one finger, careful not to hurt the smaller being. "Remarkable," Veltar breathed. 5 years ago I would have said this was impossible." "A lot of things were impossible 5 years ago," Elena said. That evening, Elena sat in her quarters, reading the latest reports. The integration protocol was working beyond anyone's wildest dreams. Species that had been enemies for centuries were becoming allies. Worlds that had been isolated were joining galactic civilization, but the numbers only told part of the story. Elena thought about the real changes she saw every day. She thought about Lieutenant Morrison, who had become like a father to his Vorthok partner Vera. She thought about Dr. Park, whose research with Zephyr had led to breakthrough discoveries in physics. She thought about the hundreds of human Vorthak teams now working throughout the galaxy as explorers, peacekeepers, and healers. Most of all, she thought about the children playing in the courtyard. They didn't see species differences as barriers. They saw them as opportunities to learn something new. Kex entered the room and settled beside Elena's chair. Even at his full size, he still liked to be close to her when she was thinking. "Long day?" Elena asked, scratching his favorite spot behind his horns. Kex made a contented rumbling sound. Elena looked out her window at the stars. Somewhere out there, human Vorthak teams were exploring new worlds. Other teams were helping refugee species find new homes. Still others were working to heal the damage left by centuries of war. "You know what the best part is?" Elena said to Kex. He made a questioning sound. "We're just getting started. Every species we help, every bond we create, every child who grows up seeing cooperation instead of conflict, they all carry the message forward." Elena remembered the words Dr. Thane had spoken years ago. She had proved that love could literally change brain chemistry. But more than that, she had proved that love could change entire civilizations. Kex shifted position and rested his great head on Elena's lap. It was something he had done as a cub, and something he still did when he wanted comfort. Elena smiled and stroked his bone plates. "Remember when it was just us against the universe?" Kex made what Elena recognized as his laughing sound. "Yeah, me too. But I think I like this better." Outside her window, the stars twinkled with promise. Each one represented worlds that might one day benefit from what Elena and Kex had started. Each one was a reminder that the universe was vast and full of lonely beings who just needed someone to show them they weren't alone. Elena had saved one abandoned cub on a dead world. But in doing so, she had saved something much larger. She had saved the idea that differences could be bridges instead of walls. She had saved the future. And it had all started with a human's simple refusal to walk away from someone in need. In a galaxy full of logical species making logical decisions, sometimes what the universe needed most was someone willing to do something completely unreasonable. Sometimes it needed someone willing to love a monster. Sometimes that was how you discovered the monster was never a monster at all.